Then one day, it's all over. The uniform goes into the closet, and suddenly nobody calls you sir or captain or sergeant, and there's no formation, no task list, no battle rhythm, just silence.
I lived an internal, quiet life where there was a judge and a jury, and me. I was all of them. And the finger was pointing at me as judge and jury, saying, you should have done more.
Healing means forgiving yourself for being human, and we learn silence kills, but connection saves. Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of the second tour. You're listening to the second tour where the mission continues after the uniform comes off. In episode 1, we talked about why this podcast exists, our mission. We said this is more than a show. It's a formation, a place where we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, and speak the truths we usually hide. We talked about the fight that begins when the battlefield ends, the one inside our own minds, about holding the line for each other because one more loss is one too many. And I told you, this is our second tour, the mission after the mission, not to conquer new ground, but to reclaim the ones we lost, our peace, our purpose, and our connection. Today, we're moving deeper into that mission because not every wound bleeds, not every scar shows up on an MRI or a fitness report. Some wounds live quietly in memories that ambush you in traffic, in the smell of diesel that takes you somewhere you would rather forget, in the sound of fireworks that feel a little too much like incoming. This episode is about that weight, the one you can't sling off with your rucksack or drop at the armory, the one you carry in silence, in guilt, in sleepless nights, in the replay reels at 2 a.m. It's invisible, but it's heavy. And if you don't name it, it can crush us. So today, we're going to talk about how to name what you're feeling because you can't fight what you can't see. And we have brought in someone who has spent his life helping veterans do exactly that. Dr. Matthew Miller, Executive Director of Suicide Prevention at the US Department of Veteran Affairs, who recently retired, and a clinical psychologist and an Air Force veteran himself. Together, we're going to unpack this unseen load, what it is, where it hides, and how naming it is the first step to settling it down. So, wherever you are, driving, working out, start staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Take a breath. You made it here. You're still in the fight, and you're not alone. My guest today is someone whose name you may not know, but if you are ever called the Veteran Crisis Line, if you have seen the number 988, press 1, you have felt his work. Dr. Matthew Miller is a former Executive Director of Suicide Prevention at the Department of Veteran Affairs. He's a clinical psychologist, a veteran of the US Air Force, and a man who has spent his life walking with warriors through the darkest valleys of their lives and back out again. He has led the national effort to change how America sees suicide prevention, not just as a crisis intervention, but as a mission of connection, of hope, and of early action. And what I've always respected about Dr. Miller is this. He does not just deal in numbers, he deals in names. Every chart, every report, every percentage point behind it is a name, a face, a story that matters. Dr. Miller, it's an absolute honor to have you here on the second tour.
Well, thank you
Welcome.
for that intro. I greatly appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here. I love what you said about if you're one of those who's laying in bed 0200 in the morning staring at the ceiling. Can understand and relate to that. And I hope that we're able to speak meaningfully to those individuals.
Thank you. I appreciate the doc. You have spent decades on this front line working with veterans who are, let's be honest, standing at the edge. You have seen what most of us don't, the invisible fight behind the uniform. So I want to ask you this. When a veteran comes to you, angry, exhausted, numb, when they can't even describe what's going on inside of them, what is the first thing you try to help them do?
Yeah. A lot of times veterans who are at that edge, they're in crisis, or it's a significantly dark moment. They're confused by the fact that in many ways they're ambivalent. That's a fancy word for you feel emotions that conflict, that don't go together. And at heart, a lot of times the ambivalence is around life or death. You have emotions about living, you have emotions about dying, and you're working through all the questions and the feelings that go with that. I think during those times, it's really important to latch on to hope, to latch on to the thoughts and the memories that make life worthwhile and worth living, and to move forward then planfully from there. And a lot of times people need help during those dark moments to do that and to work through all the different emotions that they're experiencing.
Is there any part where you talk and start with words, like to name what they're feeling? Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's shame, sometimes it's emptiness. So do you try to name that invisible weight?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple important, I don't want to say steps necessarily, but I think that there's at least two important things to do. Number one, naming what that emotion is and what's going on inside of you or those emotions, and then accepting them rather than trying to deny or act like they don't exist or act like they're unacceptable or you shouldn't be feeling them. So, naming them, accepting them, and that really provides the foundation for moving forward constructively from there. Hey, believe it or not, the Scholars Metallica, the rock band, they talked about this. They have a song out that's called "Screaming Suicide." The whole point of the song is naming suicide. It's naming that's occurring inside of you. It's speaking its name, shedding light upon it, and then taking what the song refers to as its poison away. So I think that that's just a powerful, practical example. And a lot of veterans relate to that. As a matter of fact, when I was with the VA, we asked Metallica to shoot a promo, a public service announcement based upon that song for veterans. And now it's something that they offer and play, starting all of their concerts as people are filing into the auditorium or the stadium. Just think that gives a really powerful example of the importance of naming it, accepting it, and then moving forward from it.
That's very powerful, because you're right. We're trained to identify everything outside of us, targets, terrain, threats. But when it comes to what's inside, we don't have a vocabulary. I remember talking to a buddy who told me, I don't know what's wrong with me, man. I just feel off. And what he means was, I'm hurting, but I don't know what to call it. And until he could name it, he could not fight it. Dr. Miller, when a veteran family finds that word, that moment when they say, yeah, that's it, that's what I'm feeling, what happens next?
I think what needs to happen from there is, instead of, so let's say that word is guilt. Let's say that word is shame. I think what happens next is very automatic, very subtle, but it's often trying to deny it. Or, you'll say things like, "Oh, I shouldn't feel that way," or don't feel that way, or it's bad. And we spend so much time then pushing against it that we don't really just address it and then position ourselves to move from there. So I think a critical next and immediate step is spend a little less time pushing against it once it's named, and instead acknowledge it and say, so what are we going to do with it? Where do we go from here?
It feels like they get a little bit of control over it
Yeah.
because it was not named. And now it's like a flipping light on a dark room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Silence kills more veterans than any battlefield ever did. And the truth we all need to, that's a truth we all need to sit with. So we're going to unpack that next. That silence, the shame, the power of naming, right after this. So when we talk about the weight you can't see, we're not just talking about sadness or anxiety or stress, but we're also talking about the kind of weight that comes from what we have seen and what you have done and what we have lost. Right? Some of it is moral, some of it is emotional, some of it is spiritual. But whatever form it takes, it's heavy and it's quiet. It does not announce itself. It just sits with you in your chest, in your stomach, behind your eyes, until one day you realize you've been carrying it for so long. That's called the survivor's guilt. My question that keeps looming is, why him? Why not me? And how to move forward with that? What is your suggestion, Dr. Miller, for a feeling like that, when you feel like you don't deserve to live because somebody you served with is lost. You laugh, and immediately you feel guilty of it. You plan a future, but part of you feel like you betrayed the past. How to deal with this?
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I think that I experienced myself a lot. I got into suicide prevention from my career and time in the military because I lost a colleague and a friend to suicide, and there was a significant period in my life of um, I lived an internal, quiet life where there was a judge and a jury, and me, I was all of them. And the finger was pointing at me as judge and jury, saying, "You should have done more. You could have done better. You should have known. Why didn't you know? You're a psychologist." Um, and, I think there's two things that I did that probably, looking back on it, weren't extremely productive with those kinds of feelings and that kind of experience. Spending a lot of time in the courtroom, metaphorically speaking, arguing my case didn't help. And on the other hand, completely shutting down and refusing to engage any of it only led to further kickback, bounce back later in the courtroom. So it's like I didn't show up for court, and that led to further penalties and accusations. I would then go to the other extreme and I would sit there for hours upon hours arguing the case and listening to the case against me. That wasn't helpful. Um, I think what is much more helpful is realizing that there's a middle ground where you say, look, all right, so what's going on here is I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I feel like I should have known. I feel like I should have talked more about mental health and suicide with John. I should have opened the door. I should have recognized these things. But I was also the best friend that I could be during the time that we had together. While I'm sure there are things that I could have done differently, there are things that I did well too within that relationship. So, how am I going to move forward with the recognition that could have done better, but also didn't try my best within the relationship and in general? What that was able to switch me to gradually was focusing more on the here and now. So, in the here and now, one thing I learned from going through the experience with and about John was I didn't open the door a lot, initiate the door to talk about feelings, to talk about mental health, to talk about suicide. So I look for opportunities to do that more in my own relationships now. look for opportunities to do it with my daughters, look for opportunities to do it with my friends, look for opportunities to do it with people that I see struggling. So I think that's my own example of moving from the courtroom to stepping out of the courtroom and moving into the here and now in life and trying to move forward as best as possible.
Seems like guilt gives an illusion of control because blaming ourselves feels safer than how and admitting how powerless we were in that certain situation. And healing means forgiving yourself for being human in a moment no human should have ever faced.
Yeah.
So, and next from here, if we want to talk about loss of mission, Doc, when you're in uniform, every day you have a target, a timeline, a reason to stand up, and you've got a unit, a chain of command, a clear purpose, then one day it's all over. The uniform goes into the closet, and suddenly nobody calls you sir or captain or sergeant, and there's no formation, no task list, no battle rhythm, just silence, and that silence gets louder and louder every day. People say you've got your whole life ahead of you, but what they don't understand is purpose was the oxygen. When it's gone, you start gasping for air. How do we deal with this feeling of separation and silence?
I think well, first, there's nothing wrong or abnormal with experiencing a lot of questions, doubts, insecurities when we're making the transition from the military into veteran status and life. Um, there's naturally going to be a lot of questions to that. I I'm in Michigan right now as we talk. There's a there's an on ramp on Interstate 75 nearby here that kind of reminds me of this. The on ramp, for whatever reason, comes onto the left hand side of traffic and lanes instead of the right hand side. And it comes after a pretty significant loop and turn. It's real difficult to get up to speed in the left lane pretty quickly with four lanes on 75 coming up behind you. But you got to hit that gas, and before you know it, you're looking in the rear view mirror. You got someone coming up behind you. You've got traffic to your right. That to me, it feels for a lot of us like the transition process from military to veteran. It's like you've got to make this transition pretty quickly off a tight turn. You got to get up to speed seemingly really quick. And everyone else around you seems like they've been on the road for a while. They're up to speed and they're expecting you to be up to speed or get out of the way right away pretty quickly. Look, we're we're all going to struggle and get a little stressed in that situation. I think the bigger danger is when we're also carrying some luggage, some baggage in that car that's merging, and we just pack it up as quickly as we can, throw it in the trunk or the back seat, and then try to make that merger process. And then we just keep driving, keep driving, keep driving, keep driving. And across time, more and more stuff starts to build up that we're carrying with us, and we have less and less room to put it. After a little while, the car is just it's full. There's not a lot of weight that you can carry remaining. There's not a lot of room to put stuff. If we just keep driving and driving and driving from that transition point, and we don't address and unpack some of the stuff that we've been throwing in the car all this way and just said, keep going, keep going, keep going, we run out of room. We run out of capacity. That's the bigger issue as part of the transition, in my opinion.
I think it sounds like what the veterans feel is like a grieving. This is the grieving of purpose because purpose is a living thing, and when you lose it, you mourn it. and that morning shows up as fatigue and irritability and loss of motivation, it's not weakness, it's just withdrawal from meaning. And the goal is not to move on, it's to remission, to find a new cause that deserves your heart again.
Yeah.
It seems like that is the transition you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all, yeah, we're all searching for purpose. We're all then searching for adequate income to take care of ourselves and our families and our needs. We're looking for meaning and value in what we do in this new road. And so, yeah, it all comes together. I think the point therein is the importance of recognizing the weight and the luggage that we're carrying with us, unpacking it as we go a little more so it doesn't just build up.
Then there is isolation, right?
Mm.
You come home, but you don't feel home. You sit in a restaurant or at a family gathering, people are laughing, talking about football or gas prices, and all you can think is they have no idea. uh, you start to fade out of conversations. You stop picking up calls, not because you don't care, but because it's easier to be alone than to keep pretending you're okay. You tell yourself they would not understand. And before long, you've built a wall so high, you can't even remember what it felt like to be connected. So, how do you deal with this isolation and to feel reconnected with the world around you?
Yeah. And look, two of the biggest risk factors, if you will, psychologically speaking, for suicide are being disconnected and feeling disconnected. That's often reflected in thoughts like, no one else can relate to me, no one else can understand. If they did know, then they wouldn't accept me or feel the same about me. So that's one. And then the second, that tends to be the left hand punch with the right hand that I just mentioned, is feeling like you're a burden, feeling like you're a burden on others, your family, feeling like you're not as good or as productive, as useful, as valuable as you used to. So then that feeds the pulling back and the pulling away. Then just becomes this vicious cycle where you find yourself pretty much spending a lot of time in that internal courtroom listening to all the arguments against you.
And digging deeper. But the
Yeah.
problem is, healing for humans happens in connection,
Yeah.
not in hiding. Every study on suicide prevention shows one truth:
Yeah.
connection or connecting saves lives, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, it is important to remind veterans you're not broken, you're just carrying unspoken weight, the weight that you're referring to when you're getting on that transition, on that car, onto the highway. That weight feels lighter the moment you share it.
Yeah.
And silence tells you you're alone, but speaking reminds you you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, connection, let's be honest. I mean, sometimes connecting with people can be a pain in the ass. There's challenges that come with connecting with other human beings. That needs to be acknowledged. But even with that being a fact, it is better for us as human beings, as veterans, to wade through those challenges of dealing with people and remaining connected than to be disconnected and in our own world psychologically, spiritually, mentally.
It seems like it's all connected: the moral injury, the survivor's guilt, the loss of mission, and the isolation. It's the story of being human after war. And maybe the first step in healing is not pushing it down, but it sounds like what you're telling me. It's pulling into the light, giving it a name. Because the moment we name it, we can face it. And Doc, what you just said, like, it's you're breathing a purpose, or you're carrying this unspoken weight. I think that sometimes every veteran listening needs to hear. We're going to take that deeper next: how naming that pain changes the brain, and how every one of us starts doing that today. So everything you said hits home, especially that line about, the green purpose. It makes me think of someone I met very recently. For this podcast purpose, let's call him Alex. Not his real name, but for this story, he's real. Alex served 12 years in the army, multiple deployments, highly respected. After he got out, he moved back home, tried to start fresh, new job, family, all of it. But somewhere in the transition, he just started to fade, not all at once, but slowly. The structure was gone, the brotherhood was gone, and the mission, the thing that used to get him out of bed, was gone. He told me, I wake up every day and feel tired before I even stand up. I'm not sad, I'm just empty. What he did talk, he said things like, I should be grateful. I have no right to complain. It's like everyone else moved on and I'm still stuck in some moment I can't escape. And then he said something that stopped me cold. He said, I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore. I just feel wrong. So, Doc, let's start there, right? When someone like Alex says, I'm feeling wrong, what's really going on inside him? And how do you name what he's feeling?
Yeah, well, what you're describing with Alex is that ambivalence that we talked about at the outset. It's that you get to a point where you're on a teeter totter, if you will, between opposing feelings, and you're tired of the teeter totter, and it's just kind of in the middle, hanging there, and you're like, I don't know which way to go here or how to feel anymore. That's not uncommon. The other thing that you mentioned regarding Alex that's important to note is he's spending a lot of time arguing with what he's feeling, saying, I shouldn't feel that way, it's wrong to feel that way, I should feel or think this way instead. And really all that does is drive the guilt in further, deeper, that there's something wrong with the way you feel, there's something wrong with how you're seeing things, and you need to see things differently, snap out of it sort of mentality. I think what we want to see, what we really want to root for Alex for in that situation, in those circumstances, is Alex, man, spend a little less time arguing about how your feelings are wrong, how you shouldn't feel that way. Let's just say, all right, you do feel that way. That can be normal. That can be really understandable. So, what do we do with those feelings moving forward? What do we do with them today? One of the most important things that we can do as a first step is there's a battle in these times between what can be called mood directed behavior and goal directed behavior. Mood directed behavior is what comes natural. It says, I don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z, even though I should. So I'm not going to do them today. Goal directed behavior says, regardless of how I feel, I know I need to do A, B, and C today, this morning. I'm going to take steps to doing A, B, and C no matter how I feel. And a lot of times when we do A, B, and C, despite how we feel, we then build a little momentum to start working against those feelings rather than amplifying them through just behaving how we feel.
That makes perfect sense. It's not like Alex want to die. He just don't know how to live.
Yeah.
And what you just gave, the tool of instead of mood directed behavior, goal oriented behavior
Yep.
would help him find that purpose to get out of that existential fatigue.
Yeah.
When
And
finally,
and the goal directed behavior doesn't have to be conquering the world. It shouldn't be conquering the world. It can be, today, I even though I don't feel like it, I'm gonna get up at 0600. I'm going to eat a decent breakfast, and I'm going to spend 45 minutes at the gym putting one foot in front of the other, not training for a marathon, not trying to bench press 250 pounds, but one foot in front of the other, just moving and exercising at the gym. We'll circle back, come back, and find out what the next three steps for goal directed behavior are from there.
Oh, that's amazing. That kind of gives you the whole thing when Alex is the disenfranchised grief, where he lost purpose, structure, and identity. Uh, because there is no funeral or loss, he can grieve it openly. But seems like this helps him move on and find a purpose and how to kind of find. Seems like when you name an emotion, right, it activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates the reason and logic, and it calms your amygdala and the part of that screams danger. Now it's called, basically you're labeling it, kind of reduces that urgency or emergency.
Yeah. Yeah, so and even underlying the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, we got this little gate guard. It's the troop standing at the front gate of our brain and our senses, called the locus coeruleus. You can call it LC for short, but its job is to take all incoming information and basically ask two questions. The first question is this new or is this old? Anytime we've got something coming in that's either new or old with a bad history, LC gets on guard, goes on alert. The second question then that LC asks is, can I control it?
Hmm.
If LC answers any shade of no to can I control it, that's going to fire up the whole rest of the system. That's going to go straight to the amygdala. That's going to fire up your anxiety response. That's going to impact your ability in your cortex, prefrontal cortex, to think clearly, think your way through the situation. You get into at its extreme fight or flight. So you go back and you look at that process when the locus coeruleus LC is able to see something like an emotion, and something presents as fear, something presents as guilt, and say at the front gate, I know what you are. Here's your name. You're old and you come with a bad history, but here's what we can do to control it right now. That helps keep the rest of the system in balance, not imbalance. And so that really illustrates from a mechanical, sort of biological perspective, the importance of naming what we're feeling and experiencing at that front gate, and then developing a standard operating procedure for dealing with it and working with it at the front gate.
Wow. And I heard also about this VA's framework called the REACH model: recognize, engage, ask, connect, and help. Would you want to kind of help us how to use that framework?
Well, so what's the R again?
It's REACH,
Right.
recognize.
Recognize. Yeah. I mean, right at the outset, the R there is taking the time to say, here's what it is. Let's not deny it. Let's not argue against it. Let's not say it's wrong, it's bad, it's awful, I'm awful. Let's just recognize what we're dealing with here at the front gate, and then let's go from there. And I think that that's a really powerful aspect of the reach model and the steps that can go into it.
Amazing. The last part, purpose is medicine. That's the one. Alex told me he missed feeling useful. He said, I don't need a handout. I just need to matter again. It hit me that he was not asking for therapy first. He was asking for a mission, for a reason to put his boots on again, even if the terrain is different. So, in when we talk about post traumatic growth, instead of just disorder, How does connecting to this mission, or how somebody can find purpose and mission?
Yeah. Well, I think a first step here is recognizing that, let's go back to that on ramp on Interstate 75 here in Michigan. It you're not necessarily going to fully recognize where the road is going in its entirety, or the value and beauty of it, right when you're making that entrance into the on ramp or immediately thereafter. Sometimes it takes a while for purpose, mission to reveal itself. And what we need to do in the meantime is we just need to continue to act day by day in goal directed ways, using goal directed behaviors, not mood directed behaviors, towards allowing time for that road and destination to kind of reveal itself a little bit. In the military, it might be handed to us a little more obviously and directly, and we miss that. And that's understandable. But also, we need to understand that on this non military civilian road, give it time. Let the game come to you, if you will, and as they say, and let it kind of emerge as you continue to move forward along the way. Don't spend a lot of time arguing with the feelings that you're experiencing, shaming yourself for them by saying, I shouldn't, or how could I, or here's what I should be thinking instead. Deal with them as they come up and continue moving forward then from there.
Perfect. You heard that, brothers and sisters. You're not lazy. You're just grieving a purpose, and you're not broken. You're just carrying unspoken weight. So if you can name it, you can tame it. Doc. So I want to stay on that, because a lot of us hear that, and think it's just a phrase, name it to tame it. But you mean that literally, that science behind us. So what's actually happening inside you went through, how when you recognize it, and how to proceed from there, and how the mechanism works. It's very fascinating, because that's exactly how we train in the military. Before we ever engage a target, we identify it. We don't just start fighting. First, you confirm it's a friend or a foe, position, and intent. If you engage without identifying, you create a collateral damage. And it's the same thing in your mind, it sounded like. If you don't identify the emotion first, you end up fighting it, everything, fighting like your thoughts, your memories, and the people you love. But once you can say, this is fear, this is guilt, and you've named it, and you name the target, now you can choose how to respond instead of reacting it. That's tactical awareness. It just kind of turned inward.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was struggling when I was younger. I was a kid growing up, and I was struggling with some difficult feelings. I remember my dad saw it on me in the way that I was acting. He's like, You're not yourself. What's going on? Let's talk." That was an important lesson to me. But he pulled me aside and said that, and I was having a difficult time verbalizing what I was feeling. But he was able to get me to talk enough that I remember he gave me a quote. The quote was, Matt, you can't keep a bird from landing on your head, but you can keep it from building a nest. What my dad was essentially telling me was, Matt, you're spending way too much time dissecting, analyzing, and beating yourself up for having these feelings land. In the meantime, the bird's building a nest the size of a Volkswagen on top of your head, and you're carrying it around, and it's messing with you. So why don't you spend a little less time beating yourself up because the bird landed? Why don't you spend a little more time shifting then to just deconstructing the nest that it's building and shooing it away from there. That obviously, I mean, now 30, 35 years later, stuck with me. But I think that that's an important principle for all of us. We spend so much time saying, I'm so bad because this feeling has landed upon me and I shouldn't be feeling this way. Let's quickly convert to, I do feel this way. It has landed. So, what are we going to do about it that's constructive?
So, can you help us as a clinical psychologist? Emotional naming is not weakness; it's a tactical regulation. Thinking about it, you train for years to master this external chaos, and now it's about mastering internal chaos. So, can you give us some tools like what is the role of journaling or peer connection or group sessions? What is their role in helping you as tools to come out of this?
Yeah, I think journaling can be really helpful for forcing us to walk through that process that occurs at the front gate. It really helps us to kind of walk through what we're thinking, and it helps us get a little better at identifying things about ourselves, identifying feelings that present at that front gate to our gate guard. Journaling can do that in some pretty unique ways when you take it out of your head and you put it into the physical world in the form of writing, and it comes out through your hand from your brain. There's a lot of power in that. The other powerful aspect of journaling is it really teaches us time and place, meaning you can say, all right, we're going to work this out. We're going to dissect this for about 15 minutes here, and I'm going to do it in this book. But after 15 minutes, then we're going to shut the book. We'll come back to it at another proximal time, but I'm going to shut the book. So, what that allows you to do is then when that bird lands, when those thoughts come, you're able to say, not now. We're going to work that through when it's journal time. I need to concentrate on this for right now. I'll work that through at this time and this place. So it helps us to assign it a time and a place to work it through, but we're not overrun by it and we're also not running from it.
What about peer connections or group therapies or session? Add therapy to it. How does that change the paradigm?
Well, there's a lot of power in listening to what others are going through, how they're processing it, how they're learning to go through some of the same processes that we're going through at the front gate, metaphorically speaking, or with these bird landings, to use the other metaphor that we introduced. You can see aspects of that that could be useful. You could see aspects of that where you could say, oh, that's not for me. Either way, it can be extremely helpful. You can also spend some time focusing on supporting, helping, reinforcing others, which is really powerful for getting us outside of ourselves and contributing to and supporting others. Sometimes well, I'll give you an example. Yesterday marked the 1 year anniversary of my mom passing away. I was feeling sad. I was feeling discouraged. And I started scrolling through my phone and some of the text messages, and I thought to myself, look, I mean, I can spend some time in these feelings, or I can convert these feelings into reaching out to others and supporting them. So I committed to writing 5 people that I haven't written in a while and just saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Anything I can do to support you. For me, that process of moving from me thinking about my sadness, thinking about the 1 year of my mother's passing, and turning that into how can I support others? Because everyone's hurting in some way, and everyone could use a little encouragement in some way. It was powerful for me.
Yeah, it sounds like some of these dates. First, sincerely, our sincere condolences, on your loss of your mom. But seems like some of these dates kind of hold these triggers in our mind, and without us realizing, they just kind of take control. It's very powerful. A lot of veterans still believe that talking about emotions is weakness, but what you're saying is it's operational strength.
Hmm.
Writing it down, speaking it, connecting, as you just mentioned. That's not therapy talk, but that's training. That's training your brain. It's like doing reps for emotional endurance. It's like you're building a muscle strength through repetition. You build resilience through expression.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're really strengthening your gate guard's ability to recognize accurately and to then quickly get their hands on a productive standard operating procedure once they recognize. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know any of us who wouldn't endorse that. Having a gate guard that is increasingly accurate and quick in recognition of what's coming in and increasingly adept at grabbing a constructive standard operating procedure for dealing with it.
So, in your language, when you are explaining about the mechanics of the brain, it sounds like what you're doing is you're making your prefrontal cortex stronger and amygdala quieter. Would that be right?
Yeah, well, what you're doing is you're making your entire system across the relevant parts, you're making it more efficient, more adept at dealing with everything that comes to your front gate. I mean, look, you've basically got two options here. One option is that you so control your front gate that nothing threatening comes to it, or real world, you just learn to recognize more quickly everything that's coming to the front gate, and you develop a standard operating procedure that's constructive and healthy for dealing with it. A lot of us want to go to that first model where we block off the threatening stimuli, the unpleasant stimuli in some way. And so then in turn, our recognition skills aren't that great at the front gate. And we don't have very good, healthy standard operating procedures for dealing with them. What we're encouraging here in this conversation is let's switch. Everyone has threatening, unpleasant, ugly stuff rolling up to that front gate. Veterans sometimes more than non veterans. So let's just work on getting better at recognizing what it is, naming it, and practicing healthy standard operating procedures for it.
So, if I have to translate that into the soldier language, it's identify the target, is name the emotion, control your fire, is take a breath before you react, and communicate is call for support.
Yeah.
So, it's like we're still in a mission, just a different battlefield. So you heard from the doc. Naming the pain is not poetry, but it's science. So it's how we bring the commander back online and take control of the fight inside. And those tools, writing, talking, connecting, they are not optional. They are survival gear. When we come back, now we'll talk about what healing looks like in practice, how veterans can rebuild connection, mission, and meaning in the real world. So, Doc, you have helped us understand the science and the struggle. But for the veterans listening right now, maybe sitting in their truck after work or lying awake at 3 a.m., the question is simple: what do I do next? How do I start to climb out from under this weight and the weight that I can't see? And what is the role of veteran crisis line in this?
Mhm. Sometimes the first step and coming out or through this situation is recognizing that it would help to have a hand in doing so. If you find that you're just really stuck inside your head, you're stuck inside the courtroom, um, that's a really good time to reach out to the Veterans Crisis Line. Say, "Look, I need a little help talking through it. I need a little help recognizing and understanding what I'm going through. And then I need a little help talking through the next steps that I can take from there in the immediate future." So, I mean, you dial 988, it'll pick up and it'll say welcome to the National Crisis Line, and it'll say press 1 if you're a veteran. That's where you just hit the 1 digit, and that'll take you right to the Veterans Crisis Line. You'll have a responder that'll answer the phone. They'll tell you their first name, no pseudonyms, and then they'll say, what can I help you with? And that's then your opportunity to engage and then walk through that situation.
So, and also to add to that, you can also text 838-255,
Yep.
or you can start a chat at
Net.
veterancrisisline.net.
Yep.
It's free, it's confidential,
Yep.
it's staffed 24/7
Yep.
by trained responders,
Yep.
and many of them veterans themselves.
Yeah. You don't have to be 80% service connected. You don't have to be any service connected. You don't have to be enrolled in VA. You don't have to be a combat veteran versus a non combat veteran. Any veteran, anyone who cares about a veteran, can pick up the phone, use the Veterans Crisis Line, or reach out on text or chat.
Yeah, I like how you said it. You don't need to be suicidal to call.
Mm-mm.
You just need to need somebody,
Yeah.
and then they're there.
Yeah, actually, when you really look at it, and we take a look at who calls, who reaches out. The majority of people aren't suicidal in that moment. They're looking for someone to walk them through a challenging situation or a dark moment. Now, of course, there are those who are, and that's okay. Veterans Crisis Line is ready for that as well.
Yeah. A lot of us wait until the wheels come off before we reach out. We
Yeah,
don't need to do that.
yeah.
And the next part in this doc is the peer support. So I know that VA has a lot of community partners, and they have programs like vet centers, peer support specialists, and together with veterans. Would you help us educate a little bit about those programs?
Yeah, well, the vet. I'm glad you brought up the vet center. Vet center is a really nice alternative, additional resource for veterans outside of VA or VHA care, I should say. And a lot of veterans find really solid peer-based groups and services through their local vet centers. So that's definitely an option. If you're looking for resources that are pretty specific to where you're located in your nearest area, that's another great reason to call the Veterans Crisis Line. Veterans Crisis Line has resources available to them where they can provide you and connect you to resources local to where you're dialing in from.
Perfect. And peer support doesn't have to be so formal as well. It could be just as simple as reaching out to one person who gets it,
Yeah.
someone who walked the same ground.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we're coming up on a program that was initially initiated by the American Legion. VA joined, and others have joined. But Buddy Check Week, the whole focus of Buddy Check Week is teaching and reminding veterans the importance of reaching out to, say, 10 people that they know who are veterans and saying, how you doing? Opening up that door for conversation. A lot of times as veterans, we have a tendency to think, I don't have any business opening up that door, or I'm going to make them think about something they weren't otherwise thinking about. What we found, what the research shows, and heck, what our lives have demonstrated, I think, is that when we open that door to each other, um, it's it's a welcome opportunity to make connection, and other veterans appreciate it.
So it's so true. Like one um, honest conversation can pull us back from months of silence. And, and,
Absolutely.
and, and the moment someone starts talking, the armor cracks.
Yeah.
And that's weakness. That's a first sign of healing. Sometimes it's not about solving a problem, but it's about reminding each other you still belong here.
Absolutely. I mean, so it doesn't have to be earth-shattering philosophical discussion that could form a psych dissertation. Just simple acts of kindness we know can is effective suicide prevention. I mean, we often don't know the impact of just smiling at someone, saying hello, being kind instead of blaring on the horn and blasting someone, letting it just go and pass, maybe. Those are things that we can all do for others and ourselves that just make people's lives better.
Absolutely. Connection is the medicine.
Hmm.
And and uh, and and building an emotional vocabulary inside the military culture, right? Every We have words for every piece of equipment, every operation, every terrain feature, but almost none for emotions. So
Yeah.
if we tuned for that, if we could say I'm feeling grief the same way we say I'm taking fire, it could change everything.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about, I told you I have four daughters. I'm thinking about raising my daughters when they were younger, and thinking about when they might be tantruming. And one of the things you say to your kids is find your words, it's just interesting to observe humans that, when they're not finding their words, the tantruming that can lead to, the situations that can lead to, what we tell our kids, we can also just reinforce with ourselves and with each other. Let's find our words. Let's work through this, and
Yes.
that starts with finding your words.
Yeah, naming it doesn't make you soft, but it makes you precise. And in the army or any military, precision saves lives. And in the battlefield, it saves your life.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It makes you precise. I like that.
I remember the situation, Doc, while I was in Bagram serving. There was this Marine Corps guy who used to bring his book to the gym, and he used to write down every one of his exercises. And then one day he started adding another letter, another sentence that says, "Today I felt," and filled in that blank. And 6 months later, while I was there, he told me, "I can finally tell the difference between anger and grief." And to me, that's growth, and that's leadership over your own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny too. It's not as easy or simple as you think. I mean, it can be complicated to wade through your emotions and find your words and find their names, but it's really important. I mean, think about navigating a social situation in a full room. You don't know anyone's name, and you're trying to just navigate and muddle through knowing no one's name and not speaking the language. You're going to be much more successful learning people's names, naming names, and making connections that way and moving through the room that way. But it's not necessarily easy either.
Yes, that's what I want every listener to take from this. Like healing is not a destination; it's a petrol.
Yeah.
You keep moving one step, one conversation, one connection at a time, and you don't have to see the whole road. You just have to take the next step.
Yes.
And and remember, you have 988, press 1,
Yep.
or text 838-255. Talk to a peer. You're not alone. You're part of a formation that still has your six.
Yep.
And you heard him, folks. Reach out, connect and speak. Build that emotional language just like you built muscle, discipline, and trust. That's how we reclaim the weight we can't see together. When we come back, we close this mission with one final briefing, right? A reminder of what it means to stand to, check your six, and hold the line. Um, I want you to take a breath wherever you are, driving, sitting alone, walking a dog, starting at the ceiling, staring at the ceiling. Just stop for a second and breathe. You have made it through 50 minutes of hard truth. You did not turn away. You didn't quit. That matters because that means somewhere inside you, there is still fight left. We talked today about the invisible weight, moral injury, survivor's guilt, loss of mission, isolation, the kind of pain that doesn't leave scars but still bleeds. We heard from Dr. Miller that the brain can heal, the words have power, and naming emotions can literally change your biology. And we learned that silence kills, but connection saves. So here is a truth I want to leave with you tonight. If you can't name what you are fighting, you will never know when you have won. So, you're not your worst day, you're not your failures, you're not the thought that tells you you're alone. You are a warrior who is still standing, and that means the mission is not over. You're still in the fight, but this fight is not about conquering land or enemies. It's about reclaiming yourself, your peace, your purpose, and your connection. And that begins when you name it. Don't hide it, don't bury it, don't drink it away. Speak it, because the moment you speak, you weaken it. This is second tour. And here is your next step briefing. Stand to, be ready for action. Your own life and in the life of someone you love. Check your six. Look out for your brothers and sisters. Send the text. Make the call. At least connect and say hi to three people. Maybe that one single call you make is the lifeline they are waiting for. Fall in, subscribe, share this episode with one person who needs to hear it. Sound off, tell your story, DM us, email us, leave a voice message. Your voice matters because this is not passive listening. This is reporting for duty. You're not alone in this formation. Every veteran, every family member, every friend who is listening right now, we are in this fight together. And until we reach zero, we hold the line together. Thank you, Dr. Miller. We really appreciate your time and your care and passion to save the veteran lives. And we sincerely thank you from the bottom of our heart here at the second tour.
My pleasure and privilege. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.